So thank you so much everyone for turning up for this chat on a very short notice. I really appreciate it. And I'm joined by Ruhi today. So just before I hand over the virtual mic to Ruhi, I'll just quickly introduce the agenda so that we are clear what we are going to talk about. So we are going to talk about deferred MBA programs only, right? I'll repeat it, that we will talk about deferred MBA programs only. This is a forum for people. We will introduce what deferred MBA programs are, but essentially, some of the principles that we will discuss, that hey, how do people get into top schools, what is GMAT requirement, all that would be useful for everyone, right? But this is a session focused on deferred MBA programs. So if you find us not discussing about like INSEAD or like LBS, there is a reason why we are not doing it, because this is a deferred MBA program session. Okay, so very quickly, very quick introduction to the agenda. We'll do the quick introductions, Ruhi. Then we will talk a little bit about what deferred MBA programs actually are, because many people are still unaware of deferred MBA programs. Also, deferred MBA programs are fairly new, right? So we will talk about that. We'll talk about GMAT. We will talk about the importance of GMAT, some prep tips from you. We'll talk about application strategies and profile building and interviews. Right? So these are 5 specific points that we are going to cover. We will keep it precise to the point. We plan on wrapping up our chat in 30 minutes max, and then we will take questions. And along the way, if we get some critical questions that we need to answer, we will answer it. Otherwise, we will stay for 15-20 more minutes and answer this. Okay. Please keep asking your questions in the chat box, right? So with that said, over to Ruhi. Ruhi, if you can introduce yourself, and please tell us if you're an engineer or not, right? Please introduce that. Yeah.
Sure. So, hey guys, my name is Ruhi. I am a graduate of economics and statistics. So I am not an engineer. It's a non-traditional background in that sense. And I have had experience in the past working in social work, and I'm also going to be joining a bank now. So it's a little bit all over the board. I'm an avid reader and writer, and today we're here to talk about Wharton and Deferred MBA programs.
So Ruhi already has multiple admits. She had so many admits that I incorrectly wrote the post. I said that she got into Columbia, but she had gotten into Kellogg. So Ruhi and I work together on our applications. She's going to Wharton, that's what I recall, right? And she got into Yale because that was the first deferred MBA admit that Ruhi got, which was Yale and Wharton. Everything else in between, I forgot, right? So which other schools? So Ruhi, which schools did you get into?
So I got admits from Yale, Wharton, and Kellogg. And actually what happened with Columbia, I think the reason this happened was because Columbia had decided to interview me, but I had gotten into Wharton by then. And so I decided to turn that down. I think that's why like the confusion happened, but yeah.
Awesome. So very quickly now, talking about, a lot of people first and foremost would say that, okay, can you explain me the difference between deferred MBA and a regular MBA? So I will ask Ruhi to do that.
Sure. So a regular MBA in India would typically look like, after you graduate, IIMs you can join right after graduating. You don't need work experience. Other programs you can choose to have work experience or not. You have the ISB's MBA program where you can join with work experience. However, abroad what happens is people prefer that you have work experience. And so people typically join after like 5 or 6 years of work experience. A deferred MBA program, on the other hand, lets you get an admit into a B school while you are in your undergrad college. You could also be pursuing like a master's degree, but as long as you're still studying, you can apply for a deferred MBA program and also get in for that. The way it works is you get an admit while you are studying, but you join them only after you have gained the relevant work experience. And the years of deferral will differ as per like the various programs. So in India, you have ISB, YLP, for which you can defer for 2 years. For Wharton, for instance, you can defer from 2 to 4 years. You have some programs where you can defer for up to 5 years. So it all depends according to the program type and nature.
Right. So since we are not on like an official forum, right? So let me give you like a fun definition of what deferred MBA programs are, right? So let me tell you this via a story, right? So essentially what used to happen in India was that, basically students used to study in undergrad, right? They used to graduate, they used to join IIMs, done, right? And unfortunately, big like international schools started losing out these candidates, right? They saw that, what, it's like complex, we are losing out a lot of money, so let us also start our deferred MBA programs to target these undergrad students, that's A, and people who have just graduated from undergrad, do not have any work experience, and are directly enrolled in some master's program, right? So deferred MBA is open to whom? Number one, undergrad final year students. Number two, undergrad students who graduated from their undergrad, have no work experience, join a master's program directly. Both can apply in the final year of their undergrad program and will hear about the admits from these deferred MBA programs. That's it. Second point is there is no difference between like going to Wharton with as a deferred MBA candidate vis-a-vis going to Wharton MBA, right? So I got into Wharton. If I would have joined Wharton and Ruhi joins as a deferred MBA candidate, no difference whatsoever. We will both study from the same professors. We'll follow the same curriculum. We will get the MBA certificate, which looks exactly the same. So no difference there, right? So these are very, very important points to understand. Over to Ruhi. So Ruhi, what was the advantage? What is the advantage of deferred MBA programs according to you? Why couldn't you wait, right, for like gaining a work experience of 4 years and then apply?
Sure. So I think one huge advantage is the ability to plan out stuff. Now that I know I have this admit, I can plan out my coming 2 to 4 years, and I can decide which industry I want to try out, what do I want to experience, because I know at the back of my mind that, okay, after this, I can go to an MBA, and post that I can pursue another industry or the same industry. I have a lot of flexibility in that sense. That's a huge plus point. The second is the network, because you get access to all the Wharton people during a deferment period, which means I can like message anyone on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm a Moelis fellow. I'm interested in X, Y, and Z. Could I talk to you about it? And because you're part of that cohort and you're part of that base of people that they are also associated with, they're more likely to speak to you. And I think the last advantage, and another one that really appealed to me, was just the aspect of knowing for sure that you have an MBA will also allow you to take risks. So flexibility is one, network is the other, but risks is a big thing, because typically people would tend to, walk on a trusted sort of proved path just because they know that, okay, if I want to get to an MBA college, I don't want to make any mistakes along the way. But with this admit in hand, you can be slightly more adventurous. You can explore industries or roles or take up new assignments, which normally would have been a little shy of taking on.
Right. Just to add to Ruhi, so Ruhi spoke about the fact that you get like peace of mind. You don't need to worry about stuff that is going to happen in your life, right? Because you know that you're going to Wharton, enjoy life for like 2-3 years, right? Relax. Right? So that's one. Second, you get network, so you can go and sort of interact with more people, more folks. That's good, right? Because it allows you to develop your network very early, right? That's two. Let me speak a little bit from an industry point of view here, right? There are certain industries, so Ruhi might not be aware about it as of now because she will be aware when she attends a business school. But essentially, what happens is that, for example, let's say that you want to work in management consulting, right, or investment banking, or private equity, or VC funds. They look for people whom they can coach. Very, very important point, right? Now, coachable people generally, like, ceteris paribus. So generally speaking, coachable people are slightly younger, right? Because if you have to go and hire a 40-year-old person, introduce them to management consulting, tough, because they come with a lot of baggage. So the point that I'm trying to make, and the key takeaway here is very simple, that the sooner you complete your MBA, there are certain industries abroad that reward you for it. For example, if you have 3 or 4 years of full-time work ex, you go to INSEAD, Wharton, whichever school, helps. You can target literally all the industries. On the flip side, if you have 7, 8, 9 years of work ex, full-time work ex, then difficult for you to break into these coachable industries like VC, private equity, investment banking, management consulting. I'm not saying that it can't be done, but the chances go down. So the advantage that deferred MBA candidates have is that they are graduating from the school early. Right. One quick point is about deferred MBA processes that every school has a different format. Right. So I'll let Ruhi speak about Wharton's format, but usually the choices are that if you are applying to deferred MBA programs, so let us quickly understand which other programs offer deferred MBA. So there is Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, right, which have deferred MBA. There's Columbia, there is MIT, there is Chicago Booth, there is Haas, there is Darden. Did I miss anything? Right. So roughly,
Hello, Yale, yeah.
Roughly, these are all top 10, 12 business schools in the US. There are very few business schools in Europe, right? I generally, whenever I work with candidates, I do not let them apply to European deferred MBA programs because those are slightly ranked. Yes, Harvard and Stanford, we covered that. Now, every program might have a different format. For example, at Yale Silver Scholar, so Ruhi got through that as well. She would have completed first year of her Yale degree right after her undergrad. She would have directly gone to Yale this fall, right? and then she would have worked for 2 years, would have come back and completed her MBA. Vis-a-vis Harvard and Stanford, they follow a different process. So I'll let Ruhi explain what process does Wharton follow here.
Sure. So any business school application will typically have 1 to 2 essays. Some even have more. Wharton had 2 essays. One of the essays was around how would you contribute to Wharton, and the other was what do you hope to gain from Wharton professionally. I noticed that many business schools will ask very philosophical essay questions requiring you to like go on a personal journey. They'll have like one essay of that type, and they'll have a more practical essay about okay, how will you add to the community. I think Wharton managed to combine both of them in its 2 essays, because in answering the questions of how will you contribute to Wharton or how could Wharton help you, you also have to add in your own journey and your own story. So I think that part was covered well in their question. So that's essays is one. You have the GMAT, you have your resume, then and like after you pass all these rounds, you also have your interview. So if you want, I can elaborate more on like the interview structure.
So we'll speak about that separately.
Okay.
But in terms of the format, right? So I was hoping to get like more clarity from you on the format. So when do you start your deferred MBA program at Wharton? After how many years, right? Because
okay. Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah, sure. So I am the cohort of 2021, which means that I have joined this program in the year 2021, but I can defer for 2 to 4 years. So like if I defer for 2 years, then my matriculation will be 2023. I would then study for 2 years. I would graduate in 2025 and I'd begin working post that. And if I decide to defer for longer, then those years will also get pushed forward by number of years. So like that's the format. Yeah.
Stop you there. So the reason why I chipped in there is that I wanted to highlight one important point that ties into what we were earlier speaking, that for example, I went to INSEAD with 4 years of full-time work experience. Then I spent 1 year at INSEAD and I graduated from INSEAD at whatever, 27, 28. Good thing about deferred MBA candidate, and I was one of the youngest, right, at INSEAD. Now, the good thing about deferred MBA candidates is that Ruhi spoke of the fact that, you know what, I'm deferring my admit by 2 years. Then I'll study at Wharton for 2 years. So in 4 years, I'll complete my cycle. I'll get an MBA, right? So this is the format at almost all the deferred MBA programs, that 2-year work you will have to gain, right? And 2 years you will have to study at the program and you get an MBA. So by the time, I'll not, because Ruhi is a girl, I will not make a comment on her age. That's not a good idea to ask about that. But bottom line is that candidates would usually graduate by 24, 25 from a top tier MBA program, right? So which is super awesome. You get into coachable industries. Okay, so that's the point that we wanted to highlight. So Ruhi, one final question in the passing about the profile. So a lot of people worry about that. Hey, I'm pursuing like a 3-year degree in India, bachelor's degree, and I will not be eligible to get into top programs. So can you throw some light on that?
So I think it would make a lot of sense for you to read for whoever's asking this question, for you to read the directions on the website. Many programs are perfectly fine with you having a 3-year undergrad. I applied to most of the top programs with a 3-year undergrad, no problem at all. I got quite a few interview calls and now I've converted like 3 into admits. So it's not a worry at all. However, if there are programs that do prefer a 4-year undergrad over a 3-year undergrad, you can pursue like a 2-year master's and then drop out after 1 year, or you can do a 1-year diploma. There are a lot of things you can do, but I would say don't be discouraged at all by 3-year undergrad. There's so many other things that you can do to build your profile and make you stand out, that this should not be a negative point at all.
So we're now speaking about section 2, which is profile building, right? So, all right. So number 1, what do you mean by profile building, right? That's the first question that I get here. So do you want to take that?
Sure. So your profile is a combination of things. It is your undergraduate, college. It is your grades. It is what resume do you have, your extracurricular activities, if you've held any leadership position or not. It's also about like your work experience. So if I were to like break that up, into its components, your undergraduate degree, like the college name, I would say like, if you have a good college in your profile, like good, but if you don't, that's not a disadvantage at all, because you have so many other aspects of your profile. The great thing about applying to colleges abroad is that they look at you holistically. So they will not penalize you for a single thing being, down. So you have a lot of flexibility there. So yeah, your undergraduate degree, your grades. So obviously, right, try to get the best grades that you can get. However, if you can't, like if something happens and your grades fall, they have like an optional section, like essay section, where you can describe that and explain what happened. But even if you have low grades, again, you have so many other parts of the profile on which you can build. Coming to your resume, I think this is where like Akshat really helped me, because I got in touch with him almost a year and a half ago. So we had plenty of time for him to explain to me, like, this is where your profile currently is at, and if you were to do ABC things, it would become so much better. And I think I would recommend that people at least, show your profile to an admissions consultant and have them review it, because Akshat really helped me for that. And over like the coming years, and I worked on that, and I made sure that I had a good profile to apply. So what are they looking for, right? Number one, they're looking for leadership abilities. Essentially, you're doing this degree to become a manager, so you have to have leadership skills. And they want to see have you demonstrated this in the past, because they believe that past performance will give them an indication of how you'll be like in the future. So make sure that if you have, a festival in college, that you are heading like a department. Better yet, if you're heading the entire festival. But if that's not like possible, then you can head a blog, a department, a journal. Be in a leadership position where preferably you're working in teams and you're managing teams. That's one huge thing. The second is that be involved in one activity that can define you, in the sense that people have so many things they do in their day. Now you can't say that, oh, I do writing and I do reading and I do this and I do that. I mean, you have to mention one thing that sticks in the admission consultants, in the reader's mind, right? Whoever's reading your essay or your resume. And so pick one thing in your profile that you truly believe is your strong point, that you feel that, hey, I can spend time on this and I'd be happy doing that. And then go ahead and do that. Make that like your salient feature. So when they read your profile, they know that, oh yeah, so like this person, I associate them with this activity. It should be very easy for them to recollect what you are and who you, what you are and what you do. Who you are and what you do. I'm so sorry. So yeah, leadership, and then one salient feature. And lastly, I would say that ensure that in your recommendations that you have from your, you also have to submit LORs, which basically means that you get recommendations either from an academic instructor or from someone you worked with in your internship. So make sure you have done good work with them, you have a good relationship with them, so they can write you a recommendation that is true to who you are and representative of what you've done. And the better that recommendation is, the better it is for you. So make sure you have a good relationship with that person. Yeah, I think that's about it. Have I missed anything? There's social work also, but I think that differs from person to person.
So I think this section is very complicated for us to explain. So I'll also try to give you practical points. Okay. No bullshit, literally like practical points. Number one, is it difficult to get into deferred MBA programs? Yes, very difficult. Because, we said like good things that, go into deferred MBA programs, your life is set, you graduate early, you get good jobs. Yes, but you need to work really hard to get there, right? It's not easy, right? I mean, it's very, very tough. So getting into deferred MBA programs, super tough, no doubt about that. The admission rate is very low to begin with, which brings us to the second point, that unless you develop your profile, you are not getting it, right? Now, what does profile mean, right? So there are 3-4 parts to your profile. Number one, we will look at your academic abilities. Now, this is judged by your GMAT. This is judged by your /GRE, your GPA, which college did you go to, a combination of all these things. For example, correct me, Ruhi, if I'm wrong, your GMAT was 730, right?
Yes, 730.
So 730 is a good score, and Ruhi is a definition of a very well-rounded candidate, right? A lot of people have like 780 on the GMAT, 790 on the GMAT, and there is nothing else going on the profile. Pointless, right? I mean, a lot of people ping me, right? They, when applying for like regular MBA programs, they say I have a 740 and I'm like thinking of retaking my GMAT. Crazy, right? I mean, no, you don't need to, right? With 730, you have already hit that threshold. It's done, right? Move on to the other parts. So what are those other parts? They will look at your, your ability to contribute to a class, right? That, hey, what value add do you have? For example, in Ruhi's case, she's a published author, right? So that was an angle that we sort of developed and inculcated further and all that, right? So that was there. Number three, you need to have practical work experiences, especially for deferred MBA programs. A lot of people say that, I've done internship with this particular random company, not going to work out, right? you must have built your startup. In fact, I worked with one of Ruhi's colleagues from Citibank as well. He got into Colombia, by the way. So Ruhi knows him, right? So basically, bottom line is that a lot of people build their profile from different angles, right? So it's not as if that because Ruhi has written a book, I also need to figure out a way to write a book. No, right? Don't do that. Different types of people do different stuff. You need to build your own narrative. That is what Ruhi was saying. Please do good internships. Just saying that, hey, I joined the drama club of my college, not going to cut it. You need to have done something useful, right? Yeah, which is provable, so to say, right? Focus on that. Very important point. That is what we would say on profile building. Some specific tips would be that, hey, you know what, if you get an internship with gold standard firms, these would be private equity, VC, management consulting, thumbs up, right? That's a good experience, right? If you have done something which is verifiable, for example, Ruhi published a book, verifiable thing, right? Good, right? If you run your own blog, good, right? So these are things that are solid, right? Now, very quickly, let us touch upon that. Hey, do you need social impact experience, right? So Ruhi, what's your take on it? I'd love to hear your take on it, right? Because a lot of students that I've worked with, they get into good business schools and then they start propagating certain type of myths. So I'm expecting a good answer here from you.
So full disclosure here, I've had a lot of social impact work. I've worked with Maina Mahila Foundation. It's a non-profit that does a lot of work in menstrual hygiene awareness, and particularly I led an initiative that looked at the tribal community in RA Forest. So I have done a lot of social work, but I think whether or not you want to engage in this will depend upon which business school are you targeting. So there are certain business schools that are known for their ethos of social work and the whole corporate world. So like, for example, Yale is a perfect blend of the two. It says it builds leaders for society. So it is like a amalgamation of those two worlds. But there's so many business schools out there that will look at a like just different things. For example, Chicago Booth is known for its quantitative approach. Perhaps if you were really keen on getting into there, you'd be better off looking at, have I published certain research papers or have I written certain articles that are focusing a lot on data. So every school has their own little, theme or what they stand for. I think it's impossible to try to appeal to all the different schools. You can't. I mean, you can't be 10 different personalities at the same time. I think it is possible, however, to be who you are and to be mindful of, okay, I may be interested in these few schools, and while I'm doing what I like, can I still appeal to these schools? I think that makes sense.
So just to build upon Ruhi's point that, see, it's a myth that you need social impact experience, right? For any school. Yes, social impact experience, it proves that you're an interesting candidate. And that's one of the buckets that every business school is going to look at, no matter which business school you're going to apply to. But saying that, I need to have volunteered with 5 non-profit organizations, then people go crazy. They, I'll start volunteering everywhere, like in a span of 6 months. No, it's not useful. You can point out to a business school that you're someone who is sort of build something useful, who has done something interesting. For example, if you run your own startup in college, right, you would not have time to volunteer, and it's completely okay, right? You don't need to have social impact experience. That is a very important point to recall and remember. In Ruhi's case, she was interested in social impact, therefore she built her profile from that angle. It helped her out, right? But not everyone needs to do that, right? That's the basic important point that I would like to highlight, because people go and speak with a lot of other consultant students. They say that, okay, you don't have like social impact experience, you're out. No, it doesn't work that way. Please remember this. This is an important key takeaway. Okay. So very quickly, Ruhi, so if you can talk a little bit about the application process, what challenges did you face, right, on the applications? Yeah.
Sure. So let me take one piece at a time, right? So like the GMAT, for instance. My score is a 730, which is a good score, but mine was highly skewed, which meant my verbal was high and my quant was average. I'm not even kidding. I would not recommend that to anybody. I'd suggest that try to go for a more even score where your quant and verbal are similar in terms of how proficient you are in them. It's better because it shows that you are more well-rounded. So GMAT for me, that was a challenge, but otherwise, I was happy with my 730 score. I did not take it again. I have friends who did take it again because they felt like they wanted a better score and that was their wish, but I was happy with my profile. 730 for the GMAT, that's taken care of. For the resume, I think it is a challenge to quantify things, but it is very needed. So in your resume, when anyone's reading it, if you can quantify what you've done, just like if it was an internship period a long time ago, spend some time going over what you did. Figure out from what I did, is there any way I can put a number to this? Is there any way I can quantify this? It would, be super duper helpful when anyone's reading your resume. So like that's a huge challenge that I think took me some time to understand how do I deal with it, but eventually that happened. For the essays, I think it makes so much sense to get third party perspectives. Please, like you may write the essay and think, oh my God, this is perfect. I've got all my thoughts down. But trust me, you need someone to tell you this just doesn't flow with the story. Like this doesn't seem, like this doesn't resonate. And so you must have someone look at it. For me, that someone was Akshat. He really like helped structure my essay. And I think that he helped me figure out what I wanted to convey and help me put it across in a way that made more sense to the reader. So what makes sense to me might not make sense to the reader, and he helped me figure that out. So yeah, we've covered, wait, what else is there? In the application, you have LORs, letter of recommendation. So I'd suggest, again, make sure that in your undergraduation, you have a few people who you've worked well with and you've done good work with. If it's like an academic instructor, perhaps you could ask them, ma'am or sir, can I assist you in any of your projects? And that way they have an insight into who you are just beyond the classroom and do assignments. For me, I was the president or the head of my students' council. And so I had a lot of chance to engage with teachers, and through that outlet, they got to see me in a leadership role. But it doesn't have to be that. It can also be like in an academic sphere. So I'm just like looking at, I made like little notes of all the different parts of the application. I'm seeing if I've covered them all. So resume, yeah. I think that's about it. I can speak about the interview process afterwards if you want.
Let me just quickly answer 2-3 questions here. So how many LOAs are required? 2, right? So as Ruhi was saying that, hey, you should have done good, useful, impactful work with the people from whom you're asking a recommendation, right? For example, I have written recommendations for people, mostly we get through, right? That's good. So, but the point I'm trying to tell you is that I can only write good recommendations for people whom I have worked with, right? I can't randomly write recommendations for anyone. It would not be useful, right? So that's the first key point. Second, someone commented that, hey, for like engineers, the average GMAT is 750, for non-engineers is 730. No, it's not like that point cutoff system does not work abroad, right? That, hey, I can show you, like if you follow me on YouTube, right, you will see so many interviews that I've done in the past. I can show you engineers, right, with like 680, 690 GMAT score who are studying at INSEAD LBS, right? So it's not like that, right? That, hey, I'm an engineer, I need high GMAT. No, nothing like that, right? You need to have an angle on your profile, right? There is a reason why business schools are going to ask essays. And final question is that schools do not ask. So Ranjit says that, hey, for the essay on what do you bring to the business school? There is no such essay like this, right? But you need to subtly point out things that you're bringing to the table to a business school. In Ruhi's case, for example, she had interest in finance. She had interest in social impact. She had done some work, useful angle in terms of authoring books, right? So these are angles that we highlighted and we contextualize this, right? Because this is not a creative writing exercise where you are making up like, hi-fi essays. No, nothing like that, right? I mean, you need to write in simple language, but the angles need to be well structured, right? So that's the bottom. So, okay, over to Ruhi, if you can explain about the interview process and then we can take some questions and close out. Okay.
Sure. I just remembered one thing while you were speaking about the essays. So what I noticed was that it's really important for you to be specific in your essays. And I cannot highlight this enough, especially for Wharton. When they have questions as to like, how will you contribute to the Wharton community, you must do your research. And I mean, I'm going to emphasize this like 10 times. Please do your research. Read up about the school, read blogs, read all the pages on their website, talk to people who are currently studying at that school or are alumni of the school. Just, really put yourself out there and trying to understand the school. And then you yourself will realize how that will help you in your essays, because you might type something out and realize, if this school might not resonate with this line that I have said, because you've understood the school so much, and for it to work, you should also feel like you belong to that school. For the business school experience to be worth it, you should have done enough research to know, am I a good fit for the school or not? So yeah, that being said about the interview process. So the Wharton interview process is very different from traditional interview processes. Usually what happens is you'll have like a face-to-face interview with either a current student or an alumni or dedicated, interview takers that are hired by the school. But for Wharton, it's different. They really, really value teamwork. And that's the whole way like the business school is set up. You have like clusters and cohorts and learning teams. Everything about the school is geared towards teamwork and collaboration. And so it would make sense for them to also filter people in accordance to how do you work in teams. So the way it works is you get a topic around 10 to 15 days before your actual interview day. You will work in a team of 5 to 6 people, but you don't meet these people beforehand. You only meet them on the day itself when you show up for the interview. Your job is to prepare a 1-minute pitch on that topic. So it could be anything. Like there have been topics about we're setting up this new building. What are your plans for 2-day events for that building? Or, we want to reach out to our alumni more. How do we go about doing that? So it could be a variety of topics, but basically your job is to prepare a 1-minute pitch for that topic and rehearse. Like just keep practicing it because you only have 1 minute. And when you deliver that, it should be flawless. Now, once that 1-minute pitch is done, everyone does like the 1-minute pitch. The total time that you have from the first person speaking to the conclusion of that team-based discussion is around 35 minutes. So after people speak for 1 minute, you have a discussion period. You also have to then wrap up your discussion, come to a conclusion about what your final takeaway on this topic is, what is your solution, and then present it. And so this is also really crucial because teams that have come to a conclusion are more likely to be selected because it just shows that, okay, the people in the team were willing to like work together. It differs like from team to team. In some teams, like even if like 2 people could get selected, in some teams 3, in some teams 4. So it also depends like on the people within that team. After that is concluded, you have a 10-minute one-on-one interview with either a current student or an alumni. In our case, it was a current student. And the questions are very straightforward. It can be like, why Wharton, why you, why now, what will you do in the deferment period? Just very standard MBA questions. For other schools, the questions can get very varied, but for Wharton, this was the format.
Very quickly, I'll summarize here. So, every school will have a different interview format. At Wharton, they follow something called as team-based discussion. Bland way of saying this would be it's a group discussion exercise. Okay. Other business schools might have one-on-one interview. Sometimes they pair you up with an alum. You need to speak with them. Sometimes they have a committee. At Yale, usually, like in the past, they used to have 2 people interview deferred MBA candidates, right? So every school will have a different format. Important point to notice, and you might have already noticed that Ruhi is very well spoken, right? Please don't start fretting about the fact that, hey, my speaking skills are not as good as Ruhi, I'll not get. No. So, right, we'll ask Ruhi how she improved her public speaking skills as well. But before that, right, honestly, and this is something that I told Ruhi also, that she's like one of the most well-spoken, forget about like college student, but even in like, echelon of people that I work with, she's really well-spoken, right? So that's one, right? That's good, right? That's, of course, you should aim for that, right? But important point to notice that you must develop your public speaking skills. It need not be as good as Ruhi's, but focus on that because every interview will test out your speaking skills. You need to be clear in terms of communicating. You should be crisp to the point. You don't get too many chances to make and deliver points in a precise manner. Work on that. Very, very important skill. And this is a skill that you can't develop in 6 months. It will take you years, right? So invest time, invest energy in terms of developing this. This pays a lot, right? In unintended ways. So over to Ruhi. So Ruhi, how did you develop your public speaking skills?
Akshat, you say this, but I feel like I've stumbled so many times while speaking. But thank you for that compliment. Honestly, it's just a lot of exposure. It's a lot of going on the stage in front of many people, making mistakes, recovering, and going back again. When I was a kid, my mother used to tell me, Ruhi, if the teacher enters the class and tells you there's like an elocution competition, who wants to go for it? You raise your hand. Don't wait until you come home to ask me. Like I was a kid, right? 2nd standard, 3rd standard. She said, just raise your hand. Once a teacher came in for a Marathi elocution competition. Now, I didn't know Marathi, but my mom ingrained in me that you should raise your hand. So I raised my hand and then I came home like, Mama, I signed up for an elocution competition. She's like, okay, great. What language? I was like, Marathi. And she's like, Ruhi, come on. So we had to like find someone who would teach me how to say a poem in Marathi. But the point of the story is that just go out there. You may make a fool of yourself, and that's okay. If you don't make a fool of yourself, you will not learn how to become better. And then just keep practicing again and again, and it's never too late to start. You can sign up like anytime you want for a public speaking.
It is that go make fool of yourself, right? So cool, right? So we'll take that as a key takeaway, right, of this section. But yeah, the important point as Ruhi is speaking is that make sure that you put yourself out there. Only when you practice, you do stuff, you will learn more, right? So that's a very important angle. Please start working on it. This is something that admissions consultants can't help you with. This is something I can't help you with, right? And no one can, right? So this is a stuff that you need to figure out a way to improve. Okay, so I think we have pretty much covered everything, right? And what we are going to do now is that we are going to take questions for 15 minutes, Ruhi, if time permits.
Sounds great. Yeah. So will you be like reading out the questions and should I answer them?
Sure. So you can take some questions. I'll take some questions in case people have.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Now, okay, so let's do this, right? Because folks, thank you so much first and foremost for joining and staying, right? So there were approximately 175 people and we have a retention rate of 99 point something %, right? So like, which is awesome, right? So on online events, if you have like, so yeah, people, are impressed with Ruhi's speaking skills, right? So that's what I would say, right? So we will start taking questions now. Okay, so where should we start? Okay. So let's start with GMAT related questions, right? I think someone asked us that, what is a good GMAT score? So as we covered earlier, that your GMAT score does not, once you hit a threshold, it's fine, right? So I would personally say that for deferred MBA admissions, that GMAT threshold is 730, right? So Ruhi hit that threshold, right? And that was good. You don't need to go crazy and get a 770. GPA question is that please have a high GPA, right? Be in top 10, 15, 20 percentile. Please don't fall below top 25 percentile of your class. And that's important. Okay. Next point. How do you prepare for GMAT? So Ruhi, answer that. I am like very old. I prepared like 8-9 years. I'm useless when it comes to this.
Although I think Akshat, you did take GMAT coaching for people across countries at one point.
Right.
So, yeah, so I think the trick for GMAT is to take a lot of mock tests. And the reason that's really great is because on the final day, there are going to be a lot of new stimulus that you might not have otherwise prepared for, right? Like you may enter an AC room, it's super cold. They'll make you wear like these sound cancelling headphones that feel very weird on your face. You can only, leave at a scheduled time to drink water. So you have many restrictions and we are all used to knowing our environments when we take a test. Like we know what our college or school table looks like. We know where we'll sit. So entering a GMAT facility is very different from doing a normal exam. So take lots of mock tests. Number one, it will help you prepare for the environment on the day of the exam. You'll be so used to taking so many mock tests that the environment should not hassle you or should not bother you. The second benefit of taking so many mock tests is that you will be accustomed to what type of questions come, and not just that, but how frequently do they come. There's certain question types that get asked more than others. And if you just go on gmatclub.com, it is like just an awesome resource for anyone wishing to prepare for the GMAT. You will have posts about, okay, which are the most frequently types of asked questions in verbal or quant. So you can do that. For the AWA, which is the essay part of GMAT, although GMAT Online does not have that, but I'm sure like once COVID gets over, you will have to give the test in person. For the essay part, you will be judged twice on the essay. One is by an e-corrector. And the e-corrector typically looks out for certain phrases like transition words, like however, not only, but also, and all these sorts of, phrases and words, they will be on the lookout for, like, first, second, third. They want to see how structured are you. Can you stitch together sentences? And so make sure you add those to your essay because you'll pass the e-corrector and then you'll have a human corrector who will look at, okay, what is the logic of your essay? So you can't just throw in these words and think, okay, yeah, my job is done, right? You have to form a logical answer to that essay question and the human corrector will address that. But essentially, if you get a higher e-corrector score, then the average of your two scores would also be high. The reason AWA is important is because when business schools look at your scores, they look at GMAT and sometimes they also look at TOEFL, which is English language proficiency. So they'll want to see how can you comprehend and deliver in English. And this is really important for that.
I'll make Ruhi write a LinkedIn post on this. So Ruhi, please write a LinkedIn post, and guys, please follow Ruhi on LinkedIn as well, right? So that will help her out also, right? If you have the right benefit from this session. So LinkedIn is a platform that is gaining a lot of prominence, especially in college students. So yeah, good idea for Ruhi to get started there, right? So Ruhi, please do it. Okay. So how to prepare for GMAT, right? So you can start literally with that, and that can be a great refresher to everyone who could not join the session. Okay, so instead of GMAT, you can take GRE, not a problem. It's judged at the same podium, at least for now. My personal take on that is, and I don't have data here, but yeah. So, but the point I want to drive home is very simple, that GMAT is a preferred exam for business schools. Right now, pandemic situation, so take either GRE, GMAT, doesn't matter. But going forward, I am quite confident that GMAT would be somewhat preferred, right? So if you're starting out your preparation, then prepare for GMAT over GRE. Ruhi, can you speak a little bit about like scholarships or financing, right? That's one question that we have not covered, right? So how are you financing your MBA? If you're comfortable speaking about that. If not, just say it's okay, right?
So for financing, there are many options. So the one is like, okay, the school will give you a scholarship. Typically for deferred MBA programs, though, they will not let you know what the scholarship is until the year you decide to matriculate, which means that although I've gotten admission, I do not know what my scholarship amount is going to be until the year I tell them, oh, look, now I'm joining you. So unfortunately, like I can't comment on that aspect of the scholarship. However, if you're going like for an MBA program, generally financing, you have scholarships is one option. The other is many business schools have banks that they've tied up with, which will help provide the students with student loans at either 0% interest or very low interest rates. So that can help you. And usually what happens is the kind of jobs you get after business school, if you save well and you have good financial habits, you can eventually pay off that loan within 5 years, or if you're very good with your finances, in like 3 years or 2 years. It all depends on how you spend your money. So you have loans as one option, you have scholarships as the other option. You also have external scholarships, which are the ones that are not awarded by the college themselves. Like you will have, I think in India, you have a Dhirubhai Ambani scholarship for Stanford graduates. I think they have that tie-up. And so you have those things as well. Alternatively, if you join any of like the big companies, like I know McKinsey, Bain, BCG, they do this, or any like, top banks, they can sponsor your MBA, which means that you are working with them, you leave them for your MBA, but when you come back after your MBA, you will have to work for them for a few more years because they would have paid for your education. So there are just many, many ways of financing. I don't think that people should be afraid of exploring the different options in financing.
Okay. Let me just quickly recap this scholarship point. So if you go to good business schools, you will be rich. Just cut the long story short there. Okay, majority of my classmates are super rich, right? After NCR, majority of the people I know from Wharton are super rich, right? Ruhi is all. I don't know if she's already there, but she will be, right? So don't worry about that. Bottom line, that what we are trying to tell you here is that, see, the type of jobs that you get from top tier MBA programs, be it Wharton, Harvard, Stanford, if you're willing to put in the hard work and work for 4 or 5 years, you get salary wise, you'll be okay, right? I mean, you should not stress too much about that, right? From the money bit, right? You will be scared of the investment part, but majority, my bet is that a lot of, now we don't have data because many of these deferred MBA programs have been recently launched. But my bet is that even Ruhi will get scholarships because she would have interacted with a lot of people, she would have built her network, she can reach out to the finance team, do a bunch of things, right? So, and yeah, so and schools really want to take deferred MBA candidates, right? I mean, by the time they matriculate, right, by the time they start their MBA program, they have already made an investment in Ruhi, right? And Ruhi will be coming after 2-3 years to a business school. So yeah, she is very likely to get scholarship. Please don't quote me on this in case it doesn't happen, but there's a very good logical thought process there that there's a very high likelihood that that would happen, right? Other than that, if you just need to finance your MBA, Prodigy Finance is a good option, right? This is not a sponsored video because these days whenever I speak about a company, sponsored video, no, right? So Prodigy Finance is a very good option, right? So you can execute that. How to win more scholarships? Build a very good profile, do really good internships, apply early, get a good GMAT. These are some basic stuff. There is no formula that X plus Y is equal to whatever, right? So it doesn't work. So in short, that for the pitch was okay. And Ruhi spoke about GMAT Club, GMAT CLUB. Okay.
Just adding to the point of having less data. So this Wharton program, although it had existed in the past, it was always for UPenn graduates, University of Pennsylvania graduates. But now in 2020 is when they opened it up to other students as well. So again, super recent. You have programs that are older, like the Silver Scholars program has been there for quite a while, and you have, Harvard 2+2. So you have, programs that have been there for a while and new programs that are coming up every, few years. So I think be on the lookout, because you're hearing this webinar now, but then when you do decide to apply, maybe things have changed. So I would say always do your research and always be aware of what's happening.
Someone asked that, hey, are virtual internships good? Okay, that's a very complicated topic. We can do literally a webinar on this as well, right? I don't know how much demand would be there for such a webinar, but to cut the long story short, yes, right? So yeah, virtual internships are also very impactful if you're doing useful work, right? Not a problem at all. In fact, I would encourage all of you to check out Cases Over Coffee Global Fellowship, because our last batch, or like 2 batches ago, our entire cohort got paid internship from a Canadian company, right? Even like best colleges in India cannot do that, right? So basically, please check Cases Over Coffee Global Fellowship. Good option for you to check and do some virtual work as of now. And we plan on taking our cohort members to other business schools, other international options when the pandemic is over, but good, right? So that's fun. Please make sure that if you're doing any type of internship, the brand value is good, right? I mean, that is the major point. If you're doing a virtual internship with McKinsey, so be it, it's fine. If you're doing a virtual internship with a central government in India, good enough, right? So no problem, right? So all these are gold standard internships. Be on a lookout there.
Just to add to Akshat's point, although that's like phenomenal, what's happening with Cases Over Coffee, congratulations. To add to that, I did a virtual internship with Citibank in 2020 for 6 weeks. That was my summer internship. And although, yes, like you do miss the physical interaction, I think the onus is really up to the person, like, to us, to engage in the internship. It's so easy to only just attend what sessions they organize and, the kind of work you have to do and like switch off after that. But I think it's really up to us in a virtual environment to take the initiative to contact people you otherwise wouldn't have. What usually happens is in a physical office, you like bump into someone and that's how you catch up. Or you see someone sitting a few cubicles away and you can just say hi and you can have a conversation. It's a little bit more effort in the digital world, but I think it's completely worth putting in that effort because the rewards are huge.
A lot of people are asking me how they can reach out. So honestly, folks, I only work on referrals now, but please reach out to admin@casesovercoffee.com, right? This is the email ID on which you can reach out to us. That's it. That's the only email ID. And yeah, that should be good. Now, any other questions? So very tough for us to answer. A lot of questions we are getting is that, hey, does volunteering with UN add value? Yes, for sure. UN is a wonderful organization. It will. Many of them, you have asked that, hey, my profile is X, I'm an Indiana University student, my GPA is this, is it good enough? We don't know, right? Because that is just very limited data point that you have told us. You have only talked about the academic bucket. So academically, you're good. But other buckets, what will you contribute to the school? What internships you have done? What is your USP? All that angles we don't know, so we can't say. All right. So Pallavi, same question, right? So if it gets answered from that angle.
There's so many questions. I don't know how you're keeping a track of all of these.
We'll definitely miss, guys. So what I would request is that we will be posting this video on YouTube, right? Please ask your questions there. I will try to answer as many questions as I can, right, by typing it out. That's the best I can do, right? So Ayan asked that how do deferred MBA programs in Europe differ from the ones in the US? So INSEAD does not have a deferred MBA. LBS does not have a deferred MBA program. Essentially, when we say the word deferred MBA, it's just a conduit or a pipeline through which you get into an MBA program, right? The MBA program still remains Wharton MBA. That's what Ruhi will get at the end of her 4 years, right?
5 or 6, I don't know. It depends. Yeah.
In my case, I graduated from INSEAD, right? So yeah, I am an INSEAD MBA, right? So that's what we would be called as, right? So that's what I would say. INSEAD, LBS have something called as MIM. Now, if you start comparing MIM with deferred MBA, which option is better? Deferred MBA, 100%. I do not give iffy responses where I'm, giving you a very safe response. No, deferred MBA programs is 10 times better than MIMs. The reason is very, very simple. I've done an entire video on my YouTube channel. Please go and watch it. I've logically explained everything, right? Why? Because it's super tough to get into deferred MBA programs. Like, you try figuring out, right? I mean, Ruhi is one candidate who has gotten into deferred MBA programs at Wharton from India. Tell me three more people that you know. I can tell you 20 people who got into like top tier MIM programs. That itself tells you that it's very tough to get into deferred MBA programs vis-a-vis MIMs, right? And therefore, if the competition for something is very high, automatically there is a filter there, right?
And just to like add to that point, Akshat has two YouTube channels that I'm aware of. At least there could be more, and I don't know. But one is Akshat Srivastava, and the other is.
I'm going to start a third one, right? So yeah.
Oh wow! And the other is My MBA Journey. So I don't know on which channel you'll be viewing this video, but he does have good content about MBAs on both the channels. My MBA Journey has a lot of interviews from other people who also have gotten in, and I have to say this right now. I binged watched those videos when I was applying. So when I was applying to Wharton, I watched a lot of Wharton people's videos and I got very useful tips from them. So please go check out those other videos as well, because you will get so many more things that maybe we didn't have the time to cover over here. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Ruhi. Just very quickly, any other questions you want to take, Ruhi? I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, we have missed like a lot of questions. People are asking that, hey, can I join like organizations like Enactus, ISEC, 180 DC? Does it add value? So I think Ruhi can answer that. So what organizations did you join, Ruhi, in college?
In college, okay. So I joined the Students' Council of my college, which is the sort of student body of the college. I was the head over there. And I've been
a lot of people would have come in late. So which college did you go to?
Right? Okay, I went to St. Xavier's College in South Bombay. And the different activities I took part in, there were so many. I did a lot of extracurricular activities. I was heavily involved in Malhar, which is our flagship festival, in Jan Fest, in Sound of the Sufis, in Antas. I was in student council. I also, so yeah, a lot of activities. Also in the research space, Xavier's has a lot of research journals, so you can write for that. If you are part of Xavier's and you're watching this, take good use of that. And so I think even in your colleges, every college will have something or the other going on in terms of extracurricular activities, and just join anything and make yourself stand out within that. Yes, labels and names, they do carry some weight, but that's not it. If you can join any organization and create good, lasting, important change, and you're able to bring that out in your resume, that is super valuable, because it shows that given whatever resources you have, you've made the best use out of them.
Okay. Someone is asking, so Tejas is asking, hey, why did you not enroll at Yale over Wharton?
So it was actually a personal decision. I'm living with my Nana, and my Nani passed away this year, and I wanted to be with him for longer. And so Wharton will allow me to stay in Bombay essentially, or in India for longer. I'll get to be with my family, and then I'll go to Wharton. So it was that, and the other was also, work experience. I get to have work experience before going to Wharton.
I have one very important question by Vineet. So okay, just very quickly. So in Ruhi's case, both are very good schools, like Yale and Wharton. Wharton is ranked slightly higher, right? So yeah, that's one more additional reason. Not necessarily applies to Ruhi's case, but in general, right? Why people would pick Wharton over Yale. Vineet asks a very interesting and important question that, hey, if I get rejected during my deferred MBA application, will it impact my regular MBA applications? Answer is no, right? It's just judged completely differently. So it doesn't matter at all, right? Positively or negatively.
Just to add to that, yes, it does not matter at all, but they might ask you to fill in another essay, which is called like the reapplicant essay, where you might have to highlight what you've done differently since when you first applied and when you applied now. But yeah, like to what Akshat said, it will not matter if you got rejected in the past, because they want to see essentially how much have you grown. That's what they care about. They don't care whether or not you've.
Honestly, actually what happens is that if you apply as a deferred MBA candidate and if you are applying after 4 years, then they don't even ask for that reapplicant essay, because the application expires after 2 years generally speaking.
Interesting. Yeah. I think one question from Mugdha is, would you say your essay reflected more of your academic knowledge or extracurricular experience or personal values? So Mugdha, I think you have to, tie in, at least for me it was my personal experiences and my extracurricular experiences. Because academics, everyone has to do. Everyone has to take those exams and those courses. And if you are someone for whom academics is super important, then be sure to mention that. But for me personally, it was my extracurricular involvement in MENA and in book writing that formed a large part of my essays, and how those experiences tied into personal situations in my life.
So, all right. Sorry, we are not able to take all the questions. There were a lot of questions. We will upload this on YouTube hopefully by tomorrow, day after max. Please type in your questions there. Right. We'll upload it on my MBA journey. Right. So please search for my MBA journey on YouTube. That's a channel on which we will upload. Take a look and let us know if you have more questions. I'll personally respond to that. Like that's what I promised you. I'll answer that. Okay. So that's, yeah. If there are any remaining questions, please don't ask me to do profile evaluations because I can't do it over a comment because it's just too less. But any final words, Ruhi, that you would like to tell future aspiring Wharton deferred MBA candidates?
Wow. Okay. That's a loaded question. I think I would just say that be really organized. I know it's a very strange feedback to give, but it's worked very well for me. And what I mean by this is you have to submit many different things in your application. It's easy to lose track of what you have to submit and by when. So I would say, even if you aren't in the habit of being organized, please get organized. Have like a timeline in front of you where, okay, by this date I have to do this, by this date I have to do this. And or like have folders on your desktop, okay, like a folder for whichever business school you're applying to and various components of that.
People are asking for your book's name, so they will buy it, right? So if you have a link.
Okay, wait, I'll just find it then. But it's called The Sea of Gilead, SEA GELLED.
If you have an Amazon link, you can give us that, right?
Sure, I'll do that. Wow, I didn't expect that. But yeah, that's very kind. But I think the audience has been so wonderful during this session. Okay, I have posted it.
Please do purchase Ruhi's book, right? That would mean a lot to us, right? So yeah. Good. All right. So you were completing something. Sorry, I interjected. Yeah. Just complete and we'll close it.
Yeah, sure. I was just saying that it's a good habit to be organized because there's so many things and you might lose track of all the deadlines. I think Akshat must have gotten so annoyed by how often I was like, Akshat, I want to get, and he's like, Ruhi, you have time, don't worry. And I was like, no, but this thing. And he's like, you have time, chill. So I think just be organized. That's a very weird tip, but it's useful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us and staying on the call. Really appreciate it. People listen to us for 1 hour. Thank you so much. Really means a lot to us. And
Yes.
we will have Ruhi over when she is actually studying at Wharton. Right?
That would be awesome.
We'll try to do like an in-person Wharton interview. Right? So I'll come to Wharton and do it. Right? So okay.
That would be so cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Take care.